I was 74 years old when I drove back to my farm after a long week away and saw a rented truck parked right up against my porch. At first, I thought I had the wrong place. But then I noticed the front door wide open, my curtains missing, and two men carrying my dining table out like it didn't belong there anymore. I stepped out of my truck slowly, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw my son standing in the doorway, not surprised to see me at all. He didn't move toward me, didn't ask how I'd been, just stood there with his hands in his pockets like I was the one trespassing. "What is this?" I asked, my voice steady in a way I didn't quite feel. He shrugged, glanced back at the men hauling my things. "We're clearing it out. Figured it was time." "Clearing what out?" I said. "This is my home." My daughter-in-law, Karen, stepped out behind him, holding a clipboard like this was some kind of business transaction. "We talked about this, Earl. You can't manage the place anymore. It's not safe." "We didn't talk," I said. "You told me to take a week and rest." One of the men brushed past me carrying my rocking chair, the one my wife used to sit in every evening before she passed. He didn't even look at me. "Careful with that," I said sharply. He didn't answer, just kept walking. My son sighed like I was being difficult. "Dad, we're doing you a favor. This place is falling apart. We're moving things into storage. You'll stay with us for a while." I stared at him. "You already decided that?" Karen checked something off her list. We had to act quickly. There were legal concerns. That word sat heavy. Legal. "What concerns?" I asked. Neither of them answered right away. Instead, another man came out carrying a box labeled documents. My documents. Something cold settled in my chest. I stepped forward, blocking the path. "Put that back." The man hesitated, looked to my son. "Go ahead," my son said. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about furniture. I looked at my boy, really looked at him, and said quietly, "What did you do?" He met my eyes this time, and for a second there was something there. Not guilt, not quite. More like impatience. Then he said, "We'll explain everything inside." But the way Karen avoided looking at me, and the way that truck kept filling up, I knew whatever explanation they had, it wasn't going to be something I could forgive. I walked past them without waiting for permission and stepped into my own house. The air felt wrong, hollow. The walls were bare where pictures used to hang, and the living room echoed with every step I took. "What did you do to my home?" I asked, turning slowly. Karen followed me in, her heels clicking against the floor like she belonged there. "We've already packed most of the important items. The rest will be gone by tonight." "Important to who?" I said. My son came in behind her, closing the door like that settled something. "Dad, sit down. We need to talk this through." "There's nowhere to sit," I said, looking at the empty space where my couch had been. That stopped him for half a second, but only half. "All right," he said, rubbing his forehead. "Look, this farm, it's too much for you now. The upkeep, the isolation, it's not safe. We've been talking to people." "What people?" I asked. Karen stepped in before he could answer. "A property advisor and a lawyer." There it was again. That word. I felt something tighten in my chest. "Why would you need a lawyer for my house?" Neither of them spoke right away. Outside, I could hear the truck door slam. Another piece of my life loaded up and taken. My son finally said, "Because we're trying to protect you." "From what?" "From yourself," Karen said, quick and sharp. I looked at her, then back at him. "You believe that?" He didn't answer me directly. Just walked over to the kitchen counter where a folder sat. He picked it up and held it like it meant something official. "We filed for temporary guardianship," he said. For a moment, I didn't understand the words. They just floated there, didn't land. "Guardianship," I repeated. "It's not permanent," he said quickly. "Just until things are sorted out. The court date is next week." I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my hands steady. "You went behind my back, went to a court, and told them I can't take care of myself. It's not like that, he said, but his voice didn't carry much weight. Karen crossed her arms. You've been forgetting things, Earl. Bills, appointments. The neighbors said you've been acting off. My neighbors, I said quietly, or your friends who came out here twice and decided they knew my life. She didn't respond. I looked at my son again. Did you tell them about your debts too? That hit him. His jaw tightened. This isn't about me, he said. No, I said slowly. It never is it? Silence filled the room, heavy and thick. Then I noticed something missing that hadn't been carried out. I turned toward the hallway. Where are the bedroom things? Karen hesitated, just for a second, and that was enough. I started walking. Dad, my son said, stepping after me. But I was already halfway down the hall, my heart pounding harder with every step, because something in me knew, whatever they hadn't taken yet. That was what they didn't want me to see. I didn't stop when he called after me. My feet knew that hallway better than anything else in this world. Every board creaked the same way it always had, like the house was trying to warn me. Dad, just wait, he said, closer now. I reached the bedroom door and pushed it open. For a second, I thought I'd walked into the wrong place again. The bed was gone. Not just moved, gone. The dresser, too. The quilt my wife had stitched by hand, piece by piece over 30 years, gone like it had never existed. All that was left was a bare mattress frame pushed against the wall, and a stack of boxes in the corner, boxes that weren't sealed. I stepped inside slowly, my chest tight. You didn't finish in here, Karen's voice came from behind me. We were getting to it, but she didn't sound confident anymore. I walked to the boxes and knelt down, my knees protesting the way they do at my age. I opened the top one. Photographs, dozens of them, loose, unprotected, like they were nothing. I picked one up. My wife standing in the field, smiling into the sun, her hair caught in the wind. I hadn't seen that picture in years, not since I'd put it away after she passed. You packed these like trash, I said quietly. No one said they were trash, my son replied, but his voice was thinner now. I kept looking. Old letters, my military papers. The deed to the farm, folded carelessly between a stack of magazines. That stopped me. I pulled it out, hands shaking just enough to notice. The deed wasn't where I had left it. It had been in the lockbox, locked, hidden. I stood up slowly and turned to them. Who opened my lockbox? Neither of them answered. That silence told me everything. You had no right, I said, my voice lower now, steadier. The kind of steady that comes before something breaks. We had to, Karen said. We needed to know what we were dealing with. What you were dealing with, I repeated. It's my land. My son stepped forward. It's complicated, Dad. No, I said. It's simple. You went into my things, you took my papers, and you're emptying my house while I was gone. He ran a hand over his face. Because we're trying to fix this before it gets worse. Worse than what? I asked. He hesitated, just long enough. And then I saw it, tucked halfway into the second box, a document, clean, new, not mine. I reached down and pulled it out before either of them could stop me. It wasn't folded like the rest. It was crisp, official. I read the first line once, then again. Purchase agreement. My name was on it. But the signature at the bottom wasn't mine. The room went quiet in a way I'd never felt before. I lifted my eyes to my son. Tell me, I said, barely above a whisper. Why is my farm being sold? With a signature I didn't write. My son didn't answer right away. He just stared at the paper in my hand like maybe if he waited long enough, it would disappear. Or I would. Karen stepped forward instead. Earl, you need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down, I said, still looking at that signature. My name, written in a way that almost looked right, but not right enough. I lifted the page slightly. This is fraud. It's not, she said quickly. It's a preliminary agreement. With my name on it. We had authorization. You had nothing, I cut in, sharper now. Nothing from me. My son finally spoke, his voice low. Dad, just listen. No, I said. You listen. I looked at him, really looked at him, and something inside me shifted. Something old and tired finally giving way. You went into my home, opened my lockbox, took my papers, and now you're telling me you sold my farm. We didn't sell it yet, he said, stepping closer. It's just lined up. The buyer's ready, that's all. Buyer? I repeated. Karen nodded like she was explaining something reasonable. It's a good offer. More than the land is worth, honestly. You'd be set for the rest of your life. No more stress, no more upkeep. This isn't about stress, I said. This is my life. It's a piece of land, she snapped. That was the first time her voice cracked through that polite tone she'd been wearing all day. It's where my wife died, I said quietly. It's where I raised your husband. It's where every piece of my life happened. She looked away, but my son didn't. He just said, and now it's too much for you. There it was again. That same line, like he'd been repeating it to himself until he believed it. I held up the paper. So you decided to take it? No, he said. We decided to fix things before it all falls apart. What's falling apart? I asked. He hesitated, and then his eyes flicked, just for a second, toward Karen. That was enough. I nodded slowly. This isn't about me at all. Of course it is, Karen said, but there was something tighter in her voice now. No, I said. It's about money. Silence, heavy, final. I stepped closer to my son. How bad is it? He didn't answer. How much do you owe? Dad, how much? I said, louder now. Karen crossed her arms. That's none of your concern. It became my concern the moment you forged my name, I said, turning to her. My son finally snapped. We're trying to keep everything from collapsing. The room went still. There it is, I said softly. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing now. You don't understand. The business took a hit, the house, Karen's medical bills, the kids' school. It all stacked up. We were going to lose everything. And so you decided I should lose everything instead, I said. That's not fair, he said. I looked down at the paper again, then back at him. Fair would have been asking me. We tried, he said, but his voice dropped at the end. No, I said. You hinted. You circled around it. You never asked. Karen stepped in again. Because we knew what you'd say. I nodded. You're right. I would have said no. Another silence, thicker than the last. Outside, the truck engine started. I folded the paper carefully, too carefully for the anger sitting in my chest. Then I said, Who's the buyer? My son froze. Karen answered, It's already in motion, Earl. There's no point. Who is it? I asked again. This time, my son looked at me, and there was something different in his eyes now. Not just desperation, something like regret, mixed with something worse. You don't know him, he said, and that's when I understood something before he even finished, because I had seen that name before, on a letter, months ago. A man who had tried to buy this land once already, a man I had turned down without a second thought. I felt my grip tighten on the paper. Say his name, I said quietly. My son swallowed, and when he finally spoke, everything inside me went cold. Turner Development. Turner Development. The name didn't just land. It settled deep, like something heavy finally finding its place. I let out a slow breath. I told that man no, I said. Twice. My son nodded, but he couldn't quite meet my eyes anymore. I know. He came out here, I continued, my voice steady. Walked this land, stood right where you're standing now, and I told him I wasn't interested, that this place wasn't for sale. Karen shifted her weight. Things change. No, I said, looking at her. People change. Silence. I walked past them, back toward the living room. The house felt emptier now, not just because of the missing furniture, but because something else had been taken out of it. Trust, maybe. I stopped near the doorway and turned back. "How long?" I asked. My son frowned. "What?" "How long have you been planning this?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me more than any answer. "Since before you told me to take that week off?" I asked. He looked down. That was enough. I nodded slowly. "You needed me gone." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly, but there was no strength behind it. "You needed me out of the way," I repeated, "so you could pack up my life, open my things, and sign papers in my name." Karen's voice came tight. "We didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I said. My son stepped closer, his voice breaking just a little. "You don't understand how bad it got." "Then explain it to me," I said. He swallowed hard, then finally said it. "We're drowning, Dad. The house is months behind. The bank's already sent notices. The business loan defaulted last quarter. We've been juggling payments just to keep the lights on." I listened, really listened. "And Turner?" I asked. He nodded. "They approached me, said if I could secure the land, they'd move fast. Cash. Enough to clear everything and still leave something for you." "For me?" I repeated. "That was the idea," Karen added. "You'd be taken care of, comfortable. No more worrying about this place." I looked around the room, at the empty walls, the scuffed floors, the marks where furniture used to sit. "I wasn't worried," I said quietly. "Not about this place." They didn't answer, because they knew. I turned back to them. "You were worried about yourselves." My son's face tightened. "We're your family." "And this is my home," I said. "One doesn't cancel out the other." Another silence, but this one felt different. Thinner, like something had already snapped. I walked over to the front door and opened it. The truck was nearly full now. Men were strapping things down like it was all settled, like it already belonged somewhere else. I stepped onto the porch. "Dad," my son called from behind me. "Just think about this for a second." "I have," I said, without turning around. "Long enough." I walked down the steps slowly, feeling each one under my boots. The driver glanced at me. "We about done here?" I looked at the truck, at everything inside it. My life, packed tight and ready to leave. Then I said, clear and firm, "Start unloading." The man blinked. "What?" "Put it all back," I said. Behind me, I heard Karen's sharp breath. "Earl, you can't just..." I turned then. "Yes," I said. "I can." My son stepped forward, panic rising now. "Dad, the deal is already in motion. There are contracts, timelines." "I don't care," I said. "You will when they come after us." He snapped. "There are penalties, legal consequences." I held his gaze. "Then you'd better start figuring that out," I said. His face went pale. "You'd let that happen?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him, at the man he'd become, and the boy I used to know somewhere underneath all that pressure and fear. Then I said, quiet but steady, "You already let it happen, when you decided to take from me instead of asking." He stood there, frozen. Karen's voice came sharp again. "If you stop this, you're ruining us." I felt that one. Deep, but I didn't look away. "Maybe," I said. Then I stepped off the porch and walked toward the truck, raising my voice just enough for the workers to hear. "Start unloading," I repeated. They hesitated, looking past me, waiting for someone else to override it. My son didn't speak. Not this time. And that was when the first man reached for the straps, and everything we'd built as a family finally started to come apart for real. The first piece they carried back wasn't handled gently. It was my dining table, the same one I'd seen them haul out like it meant nothing. The legs scraped against the porch step with a dull crack, and I felt that sound in my chest more than I expected. "Watch it," I said, not raising my voice. The man muttered something under his breath and adjusted his grip, but he kept moving. One by one, they started bringing things back in. Not carefully, not the way they'd been taken, just fast, like they wanted to be done with it. Behind me, Karen was already on her phone, her voice low and urgent. "There's been a delay." "No," I said, "delay, not cancellation. Just give us a few hours." My son stood on the porch, staring at the truck like he was watching something sink. I didn't look at him. I walked back inside and stood in the middle of that empty room as it slowly began to fill again. A chair here, a box there. Pieces of a life being returned, but not in the same places. Not in the same way. Nothing felt the same. After a while, I heard the front door close behind him. "Dad," he said. I didn't turn around. "They're not going to let this go," he continued. "Turner doesn't just walk away from deals like this." I nodded slightly. "Then you shouldn't have made one you couldn't keep." "It wasn't just me," he said, his voice tightening. "Karen handled most of it." That was the first time he'd said it out loud. I turned then, slowly. Karen had gone quiet in the corner, her phone lowered just enough for me to see her face. Pale. Tense. "You handled it," I said. She lifted her chin. "I did what needed to be done. At my expense. At everyone's benefit," she shot back. I took a step closer. "You forged my name." She didn't deny it this time. "Instead," she said, "we had copies, old signatures. It wasn't hard." The room went still. Even the men moving boxes slowed down, like they knew they'd just heard something they shouldn't have. My son rubbed his face hard, like he wanted to erase the moment. "Karen." But she kept going, her voice sharper now. "What was the alternative? Losing the house? The kids pulled out of school? Everything collapsing because you refused to let go of a piece of land?" "It's not a piece of land," I said again, softer this time. She shook her head. "It is, and you're choosing it over your family." That word, family, it didn't land the way it used to. I looked at my son. "Did you know she signed it?" He hesitated. Then, barely, he nodded. Something in me went quiet. Not anger, not even hurt anymore. Just quiet. I turned away from them and picked up one of the boxes, setting it back where it belonged. My hands moved steady, deliberate, like I was putting things in place one last time. Behind me, my son's voice cracked. "Dad, we can fix this. We can still figure something out." I didn't answer. Another box came in, then another. The house kept filling, but the space between us didn't. Karen's phone buzzed again. This time she answered immediately, stepping outside onto the porch. I could hear her voice through the screen door, sharper now, strained. "No, you don't understand." He stopped it. "No, we don't have the authority anymore." A pause, then silence. Longer this time. I set the last box down and straightened slowly, my back reminding me of my age. My son was still standing there, waiting, hoping for something, an answer, a decision. Maybe forgiveness. Instead, I walked past him, down the hallway, into the bedroom where the bed still hadn't been returned. I stood in that empty space for a moment, listening to the house, the footsteps, the distant voices, the truck outside. Then I heard Karen again. Not arguing this time, just one sentence, clear enough to carry through the open door. "They're coming out there now." I didn't move. Behind me, I heard my son step into the hallway. "Who's coming?" Karen didn't answer right away, and when she finally did, her voice was lower. "Turner's people, and their lawyer." The house went completely still. Even the men outside stopped moving. I looked at the empty space where my bed used to be, then slowly turned toward the doorway, just as the sound of another vehicle pulled up on the gravel. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.